Hi everybody, it's Lisa from Bumblebee Corner. Today I am going to be upcycling some items using the October Sonnets Makers box. Let's get going. So let's open up the box and see what's inside. So you always get this little welcome card or thank you card, and it tells you everything that's in the box. Everything is always packed so nice and neat. So you are going to get some recycled papers. This month it was Yuletide Whispers and Festive Fireside Plaid. And then the Painted Photographer rice paper is Woodland Stocking and Peppermint Wishes. This cute little napkin and Red Wagon from Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. And also Fusion Mineral Paint in Fort York Red and Manor Green, and the DIY paint in Cardinal Red and Salty Kiss. Let's get creating. So for project one, I grabbed one of these frames. A while ago, I picked up a handful of them from the Dollar Tree. I saw them in there and I thought they would just be kind of nice to have on hand. I really like the size of them, and I like the little arch top. So I just wanted to frame. I'm going to grab it's Woodland Stocking. It's one of the Painted Photographer's papers. And I thought this would just look really cute in a frame, and it would just look really cute up on a shelf in any type of little vignette that you needed. Just a little something Christmas. So here I'm just going to take that glass and I'm just going to trace a piece of white cardstock to use as my backing. So instead of painting the back of the rice paper or having to paint like the cardboard, I just thought I would just use a piece of cardstock. It would just make it a lot easier and quicker. So I just traced it on there and then I'm going to cut it out. So now I have the Peppermint Wishes. I'm just trimming that up to make sure I have a good fit. And now I am just going to assemble it all together. So I just put that glass back in there, and then I'm going to lay the Peppermint Wishes in there and put that cardstock on the back. Just by having that white backing, it's going to make that rice paper pop, so you get all the good colors. And then I'm just going to put this all back together and I will show you the final review. So for project two, I'm going to use this checkerboard that I've had for a while. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to remove all the stickers and just give it a good wipe down. So I'm going to start by painting the top of this with White Swan. I do give it 2 coats. So I'm just going to go over it. I give it 1 coat, let that dry completely, and then I'm going to come back and give it a 2nd coat. You guys, if you have not subscribed yet to Sonnets Makers Box, you are going to want to head over to her website, Sonnets Garden Blooms, and get on the wait list. She only opens this up a few times a year to have new subscribers, and it might not be until after the first of the year when she does it again. So make sure you head over, because the papers that I'm using in that come in each month's box are exclusive, which means you can only get them when you are a subscriber. So head on over to Sonnets Garden Blooms and get on the wait list now. All right, now that it's all dry, I am going to go ahead and use the recycled decoupage paper in Festive Fireside Plaid. I love all these plaids that Royce designs for each of the holidays. They are amazing. So I'm going to open it up and I'm going to cut down to size. And then we're going to get to applying it. All right, so I have it all cut out. And I always want to mention, I always cut just a little bit extra all the way around. Maybe like even just a 1/4 inch, just to make sure I have it big enough, because I have done it before where I've measured it out and I don't know how I do it, but somehow I miscut it and then I end up too short. And if I don't have another piece, I'm out of luck and I have to pivot and do something different. Well, somehow I lost the footage of, or maybe I didn't push the button on my camera to record. So here I'm just kind of finishing up. I did apply the liquid patina, so you've seen me do it before. I just do a layer of liquid patina, lay the decoupage paper down, kind of smooth it out with a brush on top, and then just put a layer over top of the decoupage paper to seal it in. And I do that all the way down. And here I was just kind of clipping the corners just to make sure that it would lay better. And then I'm just kind of going over the top again, just to make sure to try to get out as many air bubbles and wrinkles as I can. And you do want to make sure, like as you're doing this, you're misting the paper with water. I just have a mister bottle, and it just it really helps. Since I started doing this, it really minimizes the amount of wrinkles that I get. So I'm just going to go ahead and I am going to let this dry completely, and then we're going to come back and sand off the excess. So here everything is dry. So I'm just taking my little finger sander, and again, you want to make sure you go in a downward motion so you don't get any tears and you get a nice clean edge. So I just go around all 4 sides. And if it's dry completely, it comes off so easy. And like I said, just you get a nice clean edge. All right, and once I have that all done, I do like to go over again with another coat of liquid patina just to make sure if there's anything on the edge that's lifting up, it just kind of gives that extra seal all the way around. So I just like to do that, and then I let that dry completely. So I knew I wanted to put some transfers on here just to make a little Christmas scene. So I dug out all my IOD transfers. I have some from last year. I have a bunch from this year. And the first thing I found was this tree, and I thought this would look really cute. So I just cut that out and I laid that down, and I grabbed one of my transfer tools. So once you lay it down where you want it, get it all positioned correctly, and then you just start rubbing. And then as I started rubbing, I just start lifting up. And as that the transfer releases, you can kind of tell because the color kind of changes. And I struggled a little bit because, again, I got a little bit impatient, and I probably should have let it dry for another hour or more. But it did release pretty good. I had a couple spots where I really had to rub a little bit harder than others. So I just kept rubbing. I took my time just to make sure I got it to release. All right, so I've got it almost done. I'm just finishing up a little bit here on the bottom. Like I said, there was a couple little spots where I had to rub just a little bit harder, but it did end up releasing. And then once you got it down, you just take that piece of like vellum and you want to burnish it in. So it just kind of rubs, make sure it's embedded into your project, and if there's any bubbles or anything, it just kind of makes sure it's really down. And then I had this Santa, or not Santa, snowman. And I thought he would look really, really cute. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Frosty. So I did the same thing, just kind of positioned it where I wanted it and just started rubbing all over. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing with this. I'm just going to start, and then I'll just rub a little bit until it starts to release, and then keep going to get the entire thing down. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll burnish that in with the vellum just to make sure that it's laid down and there's no wrinkles or bubbles. All right, so I'm kind of rubbing this little design over here, getting that to release. I just think this gold, it just added a little something extra. Just kind of lightly going over the letters again, just to make sure everything is released. All right, so I got that all released, and I think it looks great. So I am just going to go over the entire thing with Big Top, just to seal all them transfers in. And then I'm going to let that dry. And then to finish up this project, I am using the Manor Green from Fusion Mineral Paint that came in the maker's box. And I'm just going to paint all around the edge, and then I'm going to paint the back. And since this is a Fusion one-step paint, there is a built-in sealer, so I don't have to worry about sealing the back or the sides. And I do end up doing one coat was pretty good coverage. I just kind of went over with a light second coat just to make sure I had good coverage. So let me go ahead and finish the sides, and then we'll come back and we will show you the final result. So for project 3, I decided to upcycle a clipboard. I've seen a lot of other creators do clipboards, and I think they turn out so cute. So I thought I am going to use Yuletide Whispers, which is the other Roycycled decoupage paper that came in the box. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by measuring out the size that I need. And I kind of looked, there's so many, this is called a master board. It is just so cool. So I just kind of kept laying out. I wasn't sure which section I wanted to use. So I just kind of kept moving it around to see which section I liked the best. And then I'm just going to kind of measure it out, and I'm going to get that cut. And like I said, I always leave just a little extra overhang to account for any cutting mistakes. So I wanted to keep the little clamp of the clipboard open. So I had these little clamps handy, so I thought, well, that would work. I was really hoping I had a zip tie close by, but I didn't. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my DIY White Swan and paint the top part of this clipboard just to make sure all of the colors in the decoupage paper are going to pop. And I do end up just doing one coat, and then again I just did a light second coat just to make sure I had some good coverage for those colors. Dry, so I grabbed my liquid patina from DIY and I laid that decoupage paper down where I wanted it, and you can see up by the clamp I did have to clip a couple little spots just so that it would lay nicely around. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a coat of the liquid patina, and I did mist my decoupage paper. It just helps open up them fibers, and it will help alleviate any wrinkles and bubbles. And then I'm just going to go over the top and then just kind of smooth it out with my brush. Then I'm just going to, once I get that little starter strip done, I'm going to peel it back and just keep working my way up by just putting down a layer of that liquid patina. And I do try to make sure it's smooth. You don't want any like gobs, like little piles of liquid patina. You want to make sure everything's smooth. And then I'm just going to take that brush and kind of smooth it out. And you see I do kind of lift up a little bit just if there's a wrinkle. You just have to be gentle with the decoupage paper because it is a little bit thinner than the rice paper. Then I'm just going to keep moving up. Once I got to the very, very top, it was a little trickier. And then here I'm just going to mist the top part of that paper. And again, I'm just going to use my brush and just try to smooth it out. And I did end up with a couple wrinkles, but that's okay. I'll embrace a wrinkle or two. And then I just kind of push that paper right under that clamp. And I just keep kind of brushing out any wrinkles. What do you think, guys? Did I make a good choice? I almost thought about doing the plaid on this too, but I really like this Yuletide Whispers. I love Olive Royce's masterboards. They're so cool, and you get so many projects. And then you can see on the back, like right there where my finger is, I did end up having to piece a couple little pieces of paper in there. And with these masterboards, and especially right there, you can't even tell where I pieced it together. It was just the way that little clamp was mounted there. And I guess I should have looked. I don't know if I could have totally removed that clamp off of there. I'll have to check that next time. So I'm just going to piece on both sides of this. I just kind of piece that together, and then I'm going to let it dry completely. All right, so I got that all done and everything is dry. So here, once again, I'm just going to take my finger sander and go all around the edges just to get a nice, clean, smooth edge. And then with this one, I'm going all around the edges with Salty Kiss, the DIY paint. So I just kind of take my brush and I'm really, really careful around that edge. But I sense that top of the paper has the liquid patina sealer on it. If I get any paint on there, I can just use a baby wipe and wipe it right off. So I'm going to go ahead and finish all the edges. All right, so now I'm going to get this back painted. I do two coats. So I did the one coat and I did use my heat gun and dried that. And now I'm going to go on with a second coat and I will use my heat gun again. And then I do seal this all up with Big Top, which is a DIY sealer. And then we're going to come back and I am going to show you the final project. So here we go with project number 4. So I am going to upcycle this old cutting board. I did wipe it down really good. And then I'm just going to go over the top here. I am using crinoline. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a coat, let it dry completely, and give it a second coat. This I wanted to use the woodland stocking, so I decided to go ahead and I am going to fussy cut all around this stocking. It was a little trickier around the greenery, but I got as close as I could. And then I love that music background, but I thought, you know, I stuck that in my stash because I'm sure I'll be able to use that for another project down the road. So let me go ahead and finish getting this all cut out. So I'm going to get this decoupage down there. So I just used my liquid patina. And I just did laid it where I wanted it, and then just put down some liquid patina, laid down the woodland stocking and go right over top of it. And I just continue on until I have the stocking down. And so then I wanted to add just a little something extra. So I went and dug out these stamps from IOD. And I decided to use that one. See, that one in the corner there. And I'm going to use the ink in, I believe it's called Tomato. And I haven't used this in a little bit, so I just needed to add a little more ink just to make sure it was wet. I'm sure it dried out just a little bit. And I don't need too much. Just a little more to top it off. So you just kind of squeeze out a little ink. And I always just kind of rub over it with the bottle just to kind of spread it out and let it soak in. So now I'm just going to ink up my stamp. And then I just kind of go all around. just to kind of gives it that little bit of a crackle effect. I just kind of wiped it off a little bit of the holly. This is permanent ink, so once it's down and dry, it's on there. So I kind of worked fast enough that I kind of was able to get it off of that greenery, at least most of it. So then I'm just a little more careful as I'm going, and I just go all around the stocking. And it just adds a little more depth and dimension. And then if you know me, you know I love the distressed look on everything. So I'm just going to take my little finger sander and just lightly go all around the edges just to give it a little bit of a distressed look. And I don't take too much of the paint off. I'm just doing a little bit here and there around the edges. Do you guys like the distressed look, or do you like everything to be kind of a little more pristine? Everything I have in my house, or I should say majority of it, is all distressed. I love the old look. And then here I'm just kind of going around all the edges with a baby wipe and just wiping off any of the dust. And then for the final touch, I'm just going to add a little piece of velvet ribbon. So that way if someone wanted to hang this, they could hang it, or they could just set it on a counter or a shelf. So let me get this tied on there, and then I will give you a look at the final project. So I kind of wanted to go, I don't know what this is called when you hook it like that, but I did not like how that was. So I just did it the more traditional and just kind of poked it through and tied it at the end. So for my fifth and final project today, I am going to give these two candlesticks a new look. So I'm going to start out by giving them a base coat of the DIY crinoline. And I do give them 2 coats. So I'm going to go ahead and get these painted. So I do the first coat, let that dry, and then I go over them again with a second coat, and I'm going to let that dry. I do want to use the milk paint that came in the maker's box, the red wagon. And I'm hoping I will get some crackle. So I thought having this crinoline on there first, if the red wagon gives me the crackle that I want, this color will come through. And I just thought that would look really good and be a really good contrast. So let me go ahead and get these both painted with the crinoline, and we'll come back and apply the milk paint. All right, so I already mixed up my milk paint. So what I did, of course, I must have either lost it or I probably just forgot to hit the record button. So what I did is I did 1 part of the milk paint and 1 part water. And you mix that up really good. I just use a fork. Some people use like a frother. You can use a wire whisk. I've done that in the past. But I had a fork handy, so I just used the fork. And I just mixed it up really, really good. Try to get out as many of the lumps and stuff as I can. And I know one trick that I know, or I don't know if it's a trick, but I like putting the water in first and then adding the powder. I feel like there's less clumps and it's just easier to mix. That could just be me. But I'm just going to go through and I'm going to give both of these candlesticks their first coat, and then I'm going to let that dry. So here I'm just kind of using my heat gun trying to get some crackle in there. So I just kind of keep going all the way around. I really want that crinoline to pop through, so I'm really, really, really hoping for some crackle. So I just kind of keep drying it with my heat gun. So I don't know, you couldn't really see it, but I know Connie from the Painted Photographer has forced some crackle. And what she does is if she doesn't get the crackle, she mists it with a water bottle. And that's kind of what I did. And then I tried the heat gun and I did get some crackle by doing that. I'm not sure where the footage of the water bottle went to, but somewhere it's in my phone. So I just did that and dried it, and it did force some crackle. So if you don't get crackle, mist it with a water bottle and hope for the best. It did work for me. All right, so here I'm just going to take my little finger sander and just kind of go all over and just kind of remove some of that chippy paint so that you can see that crinoline popping through. And these turned out so good. I was thankful for Connie's idea of doing the water, misting it with the water bottle, and it did end up forcing some crackle. So I'm just going to go all the way around and do some sanding just to remove any loose paint, and then we're going to seal them up. So I am actually just using DIY's clear wax to seal these up. I was hoping I had the Sweet Pickens clear oil wax, but I did not. So I just decided to use what I had on hand. So I'm using the DIY clear wax, and I'm just going to give them all a really good coat. And then I will just take a paper towel and wipe back any excess. And then this project is complete. So let me finish up waxing, and then I will show you the final result. Just wanted to give you a little up close look. These turned out so good. What do you think? What do you think, everyone? I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments what your favorite project was. And also, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. And I will see you next time. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.